My mother-in-law accidentally added me to a group chat where they trashed my cooking, my job, and my infertility. And my husband? He said nothing until I started packing. She thought I wouldn't see it. A group text, meant for her daughter and her friends, meant to be private. But somehow, and I still don't know if it was a mistake or a dare, she added me. The first message hit like a slap. He made the dry chicken again, didn't he? Per Sarah. How does she pretend to like it every week? Then came the others. Fast, cruel, and that job of his? Please. He plays with spreadsheets and thinks he's a provider. Still no baby. But I guess that's what happens when you marry someone with defective swimmers. My name is Paul. I was married to Sarah for 7 years. And this is the story of how her mother's accident exposed more than just gossip. It exposed the fact that I was fighting for a family that didn't even want me in it. Here's the thing. I always knew Linda didn't like me. From the first dinner, I saw it in her eyes. She scanned my shirt like it was a tax bracket, laughed too long when I said I worked in IT, asked if I ever thought about doing something more ambitious. But I figured she'd come around. Because Sarah did. She saw me. The quiet guy who fixed printers and made her laugh when her boss made her cry. The man who woke up at 2 a.m. to drive her to the ER when her cramps got too bad to walk. When she said yes to marrying me, I thought I'd earn my seat at the table. But I didn't know some tables only look full because the chairs are just for show. It started small after the wedding. Linda making helpful suggestions about my career path. I heard Daniel's brother is in finance. Maybe Paul should talk to him. Or her cooking critiques. This roast is fine. A little bland, but fine. Maybe Sarah can help next time. Always with a smile. Always behind a layer of concern. And Sarah? She'd laugh it off. She's just old-fashioned. She'll come around. She didn't. Especially not after year 2. When there was still no baby. We tried. Quietly. Painfully. I watched Sarah sob in the bathroom more nights than I can count. She blamed herself. I blamed myself. For years, the test showed nothing definitive. Just unexplained infertility. After year 3, we started talking about medical options. I brought home brochures. She nodded but never opened them. She said she needed time to process the idea of IVF, that it felt invasive, overwhelming. So we waited. Another year. Then another. And I told myself we'd face it together when she was ready. But Linda had already made up her mind. I just think, she said once, loudly, in her kitchen, some men weren't meant to father children. That when I didn't forget. The group text came on a Thursday. I was making dinner, lemon chicken, her favorite. Phone buzzed. A ping from a group chat I didn't recognize. I opened it, confused. Then I saw my name. And I just stood there, sauce burning, chicken drying, reading every message. One after another. From Linda. From Sarah's cousin Rachel. From a friend named Claire. None of them knew I was there. Until I sent a reply. Just 3 words. I can read. Silence. No new messages. Then a notification. You've been removed from the group. That night, I didn't say anything. I finished the meal. Set the table. When Sarah got home, she kissed my cheek, said she was starving. I watched her eat half a plate before I asked, "Do you think my job is a joke?" She blinked. "What? Do you think I'm the reason we can't have kids?" Her fork clattered against the plate. "What are you talking about?" I handed her my phone. Didn't say a word. Just let her scroll. Her face changed with every message. From confused to pale to stunned. Then she whispered, "Oh my God, she added you?" That was the part she focused on. Not the insults. Not the betrayal. Just the logistics. She added you? I wish I could say I lost it. That I yelled. That I flipped the table and demanded loyalty. But I didn't. I just got up, walked into our bedroom, opened the closet, and started packing. That's when she finally spoke, really spoke. "Paul, wait, please." But I was already folding shirts. She said she hadn't seen the texts until just now. Said she didn't know what her mom had been saying behind her back. But that wasn't true. I remembered the silence every time Linda made a comment. I remembered the way Sarah would look away, change the subject, smooth it over like a wrinkle in a tablecloth. I didn't need her to fight every battle, but I needed her to pick a side. And for 7 years, she hadn't. Not because she didn't care, but because she couldn't reconcile the 2 worlds she lived in. One with me quiet, steady, safe, and one ruled by her mother, sharp-edged, manipulative, laced with conditional love. I used to tell myself she was stuck between them. But the truth was harder. She wasn't stuck. She was afraid. Afraid to defend me in front of someone whose approval she still chased like a child reaching for a dangling string. And for too long, I mistook that fear for compromise. I called it peace. But it was silence. The kind that slowly rots everything underneath. She begged me to stay that night, said we'd talk in the morning, said she'd handle it. But I looked her in the eyes and said, if I walk out this door, I'm not walking back into the same marriage. She nodded like she understood, but I don't think she did. Because when the truth finally landed, it hit harder than either of us was ready for. And the next morning, Sarah made a choice. But not the one I expected. I thought she'd come herself. I thought Sarah would knock on Mark's door, where I'd been crashing for the night, holding a bag or a letter or at the very least, an apology. But instead, I opened the door and there was Linda, with muffins, store-bought, lemon poppy seed, in a plastic container with the sale tag still on. She smiled like nothing had happened, like we were neighbors chatting about yard work. I thought we should talk, she said. I didn't invite her in. She came anyway. She sat on Mark's couch like it was her own, set the muffins on the coffee table, crossed her legs and said, I think there's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, not a betrayal, not a string of private insults or a 7-year erosion of trust. Just a little mix-up, like someone sent the wrong RSVP. I stared at her for a long time, said nothing. She took it as permission. I never meant for you to see those messages, she said. And I'll admit, I laughed at that. Couldn't help it. That's the part you're sorry for? I asked. That I saw it? She blinked. Well, it was a private conversation. And what part was private? I asked. The part about my job? My cooking? Or my body? Her face tightened. Just a flicker. Like the mask slipped for half a second. Then she said something that almost made me forget to breathe. I was just trying to support Sarah. She's been so unhappy. You have to understand. It's been hard watching her settle. Settle. That word. Like marrying me was an act of compromise. Like I was the half-priced version of the life she really wanted. I stood. If this is your idea of an apology, I said, you can take your muffins and go. Linda stood, too. But not before she said something I'll never forget. You may not like me, Paul, but I'm not the one Sarah's been crying to every week. And with that, she left. I didn't go back home that day. I went to the office. Not because I had anything urgent to do. I just needed somewhere that still made sense. Somewhere with rules, metrics, systems, the opposite of marriage. I sat at my desk, staring at spreadsheets, thinking about all the moments I'd believed we were building something real. Movie nights, shared calendars, long talks in the dark about the kind of parents we wanted to be. And now I wondered, was she ever really in it with me? Or had I just been holding up both ends of the bridge while she walked away, slowly, step by step? That night, Sarah called. I let it ring. Then I let it ring again. She texted, can we meet tomorrow? Just us. No distractions. I need to say something face to face. I didn't reply right away, but I knew I would. Because as hurt as I was, as humiliated and gutted and cold as it all felt, I still loved her. That's the part no one talks about. That love doesn't die cleanly when betrayal hits. It limps. It sputters. It begs to be heard, even when it knows it shouldn't speak. We met at a park near our place. Neutral ground. The kind with benches and duck ponds and kids on scooters. She wore the scarf I gave her last Christmas. The one she said made her feel cozy and protected. I didn't sit right away. Just stood, hands in my coat pockets, staring down at the bench like it might give me a sign. She started first. I didn't know she added you. I nodded. You said that. She looked up. Her eyes were red, but dry. I'm not defending what she said. I want you to know I never asked her to talk like that. But you didn't stop her either, I said. Not for years. She flinched. I know. There was silence between us. Not angry. Not loud. Just hollow. Like the space left when a tree is cut down and only the roots remain. I let her get to me, she said finally. I let her get in my head. About our life. About you. About everything. She hesitated. Then, she always said you were too soft. Soft. Another wound. Another weight. She said I needed someone who'd take charge. Who'd lead. Not someone who asked how I was feeling every 5 minutes. I swallowed hard. So being kind was the problem? No, she said quickly. No. But I started to believe that maybe you weren't enough. And here's the part she never understood, the part Linda never could, either. Soft doesn't mean passive. It doesn't mean weak. I was the one who stayed calm when everything felt like it was breaking. I was the one who carried her through the dark, even when I couldn't see the light myself. I wasn't soft because I couldn't fight. I was soft because I chose not to turn my love into a weapon. Until I had no other choice. That hurt more than the group text. Because it was real. Because she said it with her own mouth. Because it wasn't Linda this time. It was her. My wife. She reached for my hand, but I didn't take it. I was wrong, she said. I see that now. After you left, it was like someone turned off the lights. I stayed silent. Then she said the part that shifted the air. If you come home, I'll cut her off. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the fear behind her eyes. Not just fear of losing me, but fear of standing alone. I'll tell her she's not welcome in our home if she can't respect you. I should have done it years ago. And why now? I asked. Her voice cracked. Because this was the first time you walked away. I sat down beside her. Not close. Just beside. And said the one thing I'd been holding in since the night I read the text. If we're going to fix this, you don't just get me back. You have to fight for me. The way I've been fighting for us all along. She nodded. And for once, didn't speak. Didn't fill the silence. Didn't try to smooth it over. She just sat there, letting the weight of it land. The real question was, would she carry it? Or just pass it back to me when things got hard again? I didn't know yet, but I was about to find out. 2 days later, Linda was officially on pause. That's how Sarah phrased it. Not banned, not cut off, just paused. She called her mother while I stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, heart bracing. Told her the group chat wasn't just cruel, it broke something. Told her she was choosing me, and that Linda would not be welcome in our home until she could apologize to both of us and mean it. Linda's response came through the speaker, clear as day. Well, if that's the life you want, I hope it keeps you warm at night. Then the line went dead. Sarah's hand was shaking when she set the phone down, but she looked at me and said, I'm in it. And for a second, just a flicker, I believed we might have a shot. We spent that weekend trying to reclaim normal. Brunch at the place on 3rd she used to love. A movie night with too much popcorn and not enough plot. Even a walk through the neighborhood, hand in hand, like we had in better years. But something was off. I could feel it. Like we were actors repeating lines from a script we used to know. She was trying. That much I could see. But her eyes still drifted when I talked. Her hand pulled away just a second too soon when mine lingered. And one night, after she fell asleep on the couch, I found her phone open. Not snooping. Just charging it for her. At least, that's what I told myself. But that's when I saw the photo. A scan. Of a handwritten letter. From her OB-GYN. Dated 6 months ago. It was short, clinical, precise. Patient advised that natural conception is unlikely without medical intervention. Suggested IVF referral discussed. Patient declined at this time. My stomach dropped, because we had talked about IVF, but I had no idea she had already seen the doctor. No idea the option was formally presented. No idea she had declined it. And worst of all, she had done it alone. While I stood in the kitchen blending supplements and charting ovulation windows. She had already quietly made a decision, and decided I did not need to be part of it. I sat on the edge of the bed that night, her phone dim in my hand, the weight of silence crushing me. It wasn't just about the letter. It was about trust. How many other decisions had she made without me, while I stood in the kitchen blending supplements and tracking ovulation windows like a fool? Part of me wanted to wake her up right then, to demand answers, to demand honesty. But something stopped me. Maybe I wanted to give her one last chance to tell the truth without being cornered. Maybe I needed to know whether she'd choose honesty if she wasn't forced into it. It wasn't weakness. It was the quiet final test of a man who had run out of justifications. So the next morning, I sat across from her at breakfast, calm, controlled, and I asked, when was the last time you talked to your doctor about IVF? She froze, spoon halfway to her mouth. Then she lied. Not since last year. And that was it. That was the moment I knew. We weren't healing. We were covering rot with fresh paint. Later that night, I pulled out the letter, set it on the kitchen table. She walked in, saw it, and went still. You went through my phone? That's what you're worried about? I asked. Not the fact that you lied to me? She tried to speak, but I was already there, already unraveling. All those nights I held your hand and told you we'd figure this out together. You'd already decided we wouldn't. Her voice cracked. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did, I said. By keeping me out. By making me think we were a team while you carried the ball to a different end zone. She reached for the letter, but I pulled it back. I needed you to be honest with me, I said. Even if the truth hurt. She whispered, I didn't think you'd stay if you knew how scared I was. And that hit me harder than anything her mother ever said. I stayed at a hotel that night. Didn't tell her where. Didn't answer her texts. I needed space. Not just from her, but from the version of me that kept tolerating half-truths and calling them love. Because here's what no one tells you. Silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes, it's just the sound of someone checking out quietly. The next morning, I called my sister. She'd always said Linda was poison, but she also loved Sarah. I asked her, flat out, am I crazy for still wanting to fix this? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "No, you're not crazy. But sometimes fixing something means acknowledging that it's already broken." That's when I realized this wasn't just about what Sarah did. It was about what I allowed. For years, the truth was simple. I had married a woman who was afraid to let me in, who let her mother do the talking while she stayed quiet, who made decisions for both of us and called it protection. And I made excuses for every one of those things. Called it love. But love without honesty isn't kindness. It's performance. And I was done performing. I wasn't packing a suitcase this time. I was packing a question. One I would ask her when I returned. One she would have to answer fully, finally, and without the shadow of Linda in the room. "Do you want this marriage to work? Or do you just not want to be the one who ends it?" She didn't answer right away. Just looked at me like I'd spoken in a language she hadn't heard in years. I asked again slowly, calmly, "Do you want this marriage to work? Or are you just afraid to end it?" Still silence. Then she sat down, folded her hands, and whispered, "I don't know." It was the honesty I'd begged for. And somehow, it gutted me worse than a lie. Because I don't know is an uncertainty. It's admission. It means the scales have already tipped. That you've imagined both versions of your life, with me and without me, and neither one feels right. So now you're just waiting for one to hurt less than the other. She reached across the table, not to hold my hand, but to steady herself. And then she said the thing I didn't see coming. "I started resenting you the moment we got the test results." I blinked. She continued, "Not because it was your fault, but because I needed someone to blame. And you were always there, always calm, always saying we'd be okay." That's what I was supposed to say, I told her. "I know," she said, "but I didn't want okay. I wanted answers." And when I didn't get them, I turned on the only person who never walked away. It wasn't just infertility. That was the crack that spread. She told me how Linda's voice echoed in her head more than mine ever did. How every holiday visit turned into a therapy session she never told me about. How she'd smile in front of me, then cry in her mother's car on the drive home. "I didn't even know what I wanted anymore," she said. "A baby? A break? A different life? Some days, I just wanted to feel something that wasn't shame or pressure." She stood up, walked to the window. I felt like I was failing. As a wife, as a woman, as a daughter. And the only way to survive was to pretend it didn't matter. I stayed seated. Because the version of her talking now? This wasn't the Sarah I knew. This was the version that never spoke up. The one that played peacekeeper while dying inside. I should have felt compassion. But all I felt was tired. 7 years. Of dinners I cooked. Bills I split. Dreams I stretched just to make her feel safe. And now she was telling me she'd been checked out while I was still clocking in. Then she said something that should have been the moment of redemption. "I want to go to therapy. Alone. To figure myself out before I figure us out." But all I heard was a comma where there should have been a period. She wasn't ready to fight for us. She was just ready to stop pretending she already had. I left again that night. No suitcase. Just my car keys and a quiet realization. We weren't in crisis. We were in decline. And neither of us had noticed until the roof had already caved in. Mark offered me the guest room again. This time, I declined. Booked a short-term rental across town. 1 bedroom. Clean. No memories in the furniture. I needed space, not just physical, but mental, emotional. Because what Sarah had said, it echoed, not in anger, but in clarity. She didn't hate me. She didn't even blame me. She just didn't know if she loved me in the right way anymore. And that's a kind of grief you don't prepare for. The next morning, I found a letter on the kitchen counter of my rental. Not from Sarah. From Linda. No envelope. Just folded paper, the handwriting unmistakable, heavy slants, sharp loops, like every word was carved instead of written. It must have come through Sarah. Maybe she dropped it off. Maybe Linda insisted. Either way, it was there, waiting for me like a bad omen in broad daylight. I read it twice, then a third time, and by the end, I realized 2 things. 1, she still believed I was the problem. And 2, she had never stopped treating Sarah like a project instead of a person. "I tried to protect her from a life of smallness," she wrote. "She deserves a partner who pushes her, not one who makes her comfortable. If you really loved her, you'd let her go." That was the moment the decision came into focus. I'd been waiting for Sarah to choose me, but now I understood. She couldn't. Not fully. Not freely. Not until she dismantled the version of herself her mother built. And that wasn't my fight anymore. So I started packing. Not in anger. Not to prove a point. Just because I was done waiting to be chosen by someone who didn't even know how to choose herself. I wrote her a letter. Left it on the table. Just 2 pages. 1 memory. 1 apology. 1 truth. And 1 line at the end. "I didn't stop loving you. I just stopped trying to convince you it was enough. Then I walked out. No slammed doors. No final words. Just the sound of my own footsteps on the way back to myself. The silence was its own kind of answer. 7 days. Not a single call. No text. Not even a forwarded email about a forgotten bill or a package at the door. It was like we'd agreed, wordlessly, to let the air settle where our marriage used to be. And in that silence, I found something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. I started sleeping again. Not deeply, not yet, but enough that the world stopped spinning. I'd wake with my body still, my mind quiet. Some nights I still reached for her out of habit. That half second where your hand moves before your brain catches up. Then I'd remember. She wasn't there. And maybe she never really had been. Not the part of her I kept loving. Not the part one hoped would show up. Then, a week later, my phone buzzed. It was her name. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Almost didn't pick up. But something in me, the part that hadn't fully closed, still needed to hear her voice. So I answered. And what she said, before I even had a chance to say hello, knocked the air clean out of my chest. I'm pregnant. Just like that. No preamble. No apology. No warning. I didn't speak. Couldn't. Then she added, "It's not yours." For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. But then came the explanation. Stumbling. Rushed. Like she'd rehearsed it, but still couldn't make it sound right. It happened a few weeks after you left. I didn't plan it. I was spiraling. I thought we were done, that you weren't coming back. I stayed silent. She kept going. It wasn't serious. Just one night. But then I missed my period. I didn't know if I should tell you, but I thought maybe you deserved to hear it from me. I asked her one question. Was it someone I know? She paused. Too long. Then said, no. But I heard it, the crack in her voice. The guilt behind the lie. Maybe not a name I'd recognize. But someone close enough to matter. Someone close enough to hurt. The rest of the call blurred into white noise. She asked if I was okay. Said she understood if I hated her. Tried to wrap it all in a bow of regret. But the thing is, I didn't hate her. I didn't even feel anger. What I felt was finality. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that just settles. The kind you only get once everything else is burned down, and all that's left is quiet and ash. That night, I sat at the kitchen table in my rental. Same table I'd eaten takeout at every night since I moved out. But this time, I poured 2 glasses of bourbon. One for me. One for the man I'd been. The one who made excuses. Who called her silences mood swings and her mother's insults quirks. The man who bent himself backward to make sure she never felt alone, even when she'd already started walking away. I raised my glass to him, not in bitterness, but in thanks, because he tried. And now, he could rest. The next day, I called my lawyer. Not out of spite, out of necessity. I wasn't going to be the guy who waited for paperwork to magically file itself. I wanted clean lines. A fresh start. He asked if it would be contested. I laughed, said, no. I think she's already made her case. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not Mark, not my sister. I needed a few days where it was just mine. This truth, this heartbreak, this strange new version of freedom. But when I did tell them, their reactions were what you'd expect. Mark offered to take me out. My sister offered to burn a box of Sarah's old cards. I declined both, because I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. 2 weeks after the call, I got a letter in the mail. Her handwriting. Same curl on the G's. Same loop on the L's. I didn't open it right away. Waited until the sun went down. Until the world was quiet enough to hear what it might break. It wasn't long. Just a few paragraphs. But one line stood out. You were always enough. I just didn't know what to do with something that didn't ask me to hurt first. I folded the letter. Set it aside. Because by then, I'd stopped collecting her confessions like souvenirs. I didn't need closure. I already had clarity. That same night, I took down the last of our wedding photos from my closet, one by one. No tears. No dramatics. Just a quiet goodbye to the story I thought we were writing. A story she finished without me. And now, I was finally ready to write something new. The divorce papers came in a manila envelope. No note. No extras. Just the terms we'd quietly agreed on. A clean split. No lawyers clawing at furniture or bank accounts. We didn't have kids. Just memories. And even those were now divided. The good ones went in a box I didn't open anymore. The bad ones, well, they never left. I signed them on a Wednesday. Raining. Naturally. Mark offered to come over. Said we could throw darts at her bridal portrait or drink something that cost too much. I told him no. Didn't need ceremony. Just needed it done. So I lit a candle, signed my name, and let the ink dry like it was sealing something sacred. not because of what it meant, but because of what it no longer held over me. The hardest part wasn't losing her. It was losing the version of myself I built around her. The man who believed every relationship could be fixed if you just tried hard enough. The one who measured love by effort. By how many dinners you made, how many appointments you drove to, how many times you swallowed your pride for peace. But I see it differently now. Love isn't a tally. It's a mirror. And sometimes, the person on the other side isn't really looking back. It took time to come back to myself. Weeks of quiet, walks with no destination, cooking for one, and not apologizing for the salt. I reconnected with old friends. Ones I'd let fade while managing Linda's side comments or Sarah's monthly spirals. Turns out, they'd been waiting. Patiently, quietly, the way real people do when they love you without condition. One night, I got a message from my sister. Just a photo. A mug I'd given Sarah years ago. World's okayest husband. She found it at Goodwill. We both laughed harder than we should have. But in that laugh, I felt it. The release. The full exhale of a chapter that no longer needed rereading. I didn't see Sarah again. Not in person. Not on the street. Not by accident in a grocery store. Not even on social media. She disappeared the way people do when they know they've already said too much and not enough all at once. I heard through someone, maybe her cousin, that she had the baby. Healthy. A girl. No name shared. Just the fact of it. And you know what? I was happy for her. Not in the nostalgic way. Not in the I hope she's doing well sort of way. Just happy. Because some people need to lose everything they clung to before they figure out who they are. I hoped she'd find that. Even if it took years. As for me, I moved. Not far, just enough. New apartment. New furniture. Nothing she ever sat on. I planted herbs on the windowsill. Started learning guitar. Badly. And one night, I met someone. Not in a storybook way. No sparks. No slow-motion glance. Just two people both reaching for the same bottle of wine at a market. She laughed. I let her have it. She offered to split it. And I laughed harder than I had in months. We didn't rush. I didn't want to. Because this time, I wasn't looking for someone to build a life around. I was already a whole person. I was just looking for someone to build a life with. You know, I used to think betrayal was the end. But it's not. It's a reveal. It shows you who someone is. But more importantly, it shows you who you are when everything falls apart. And me? I learned that I could walk away. That I could let go of someone I loved. Without losing myself in the process. If you're listening to this wondering if you should stay in a love that makes you smaller just to keep the peace, let me be the voice that tells you. You don't have to. You can choose peace without their permission. And sometimes, the quietest endings leave the loudest echoes. Paul. Divorced. Healing. Still soft. Still standing. And finally, home.